Every single day, seniors on SSI lose their entire monthly check over one thing: money sitting quietly in their bank account that they didn't even realize was a problem. And if you're on SSI or you love someone who is, what I'm about to tell you could save that check from disappearing without warning. Before we go any further, hit subscribe, because protecting what you've earned starts with knowing exactly how this system works, and nobody explains it to you plainly like this. I know how it feels to open that bank statement with a knot in your stomach. You worked hard your whole life. You raised a family, you paid your taxes, you did everything right. And now you're not trying to get rich, you just want a little breathing room, a small cushion in case the car breaks down or the heater goes out in the middle of winter. But the moment your savings creep past a certain number, the government can decide you no longer qualify for the help you depend on to get by. That's not fair, and it's not right. But it is the reality of how this program works today, and you deserve to understand it completely so it never catches you off guard the way it's caught so many others. Here's something most seniors never hear until it's too late, and I'm going to walk you through it step by step so you know exactly how to protect yourself. There's a specific dollar amount, a hard line the government draws, and crossing it, even by accident, even for a single day, can wipe out your entire check for that month. But there's also a way to understand exactly what counts toward that line and what doesn't. And once you know it, you can keep every dollar you're entitled to without ever putting your benefits at risk. Stay with me, because the second half of this video is exactly how you avoid that trap. And there's a savings tool coming up that almost nobody talks about that could change everything for certain families. Let's start with the number itself, because you need to know it cold. If you receive SSI, the Social Security Administration limits how much you can own in what they call countable resources. For a single person, that limit is $2,000. For a married couple, it's $3,000. And here's the part that catches people off guard every single time. This isn't measured once a year or once a month on some flexible schedule. The Social Security Administration checks your resources on the very first day of each month. If your countable resources are above the limit on that one specific day, you can lose your entire SSI payment for that entire month, even if the extra money was only sitting there briefly, even if you spent it down the very next day. Think about how easy it is to accidentally cross that line. A family member sends you $200 to help with groceries. You get a small tax refund. Someone pays back a loan you gave them years ago. A birthday check from your grandkids lands in your account the same week your Social Security deposit comes in. None of that feels like it should be dangerous. But if it pushes your total resources over that $2,000 mark on the wrong day, you could be looking at a lost check. Or worse, an overpayment notice demanding that you pay back money the government now says you weren't entitled to receive in the first place. Now, here's where I need you to really lean in, because this is the part that protects you. Not everything you own counts toward that limit, and understanding the difference between countable and excluded resources is the single most important thing you can do to keep your benefits safe. The home you live in does not count, no matter what it's worth on the market. One vehicle that you use for transportation is excluded as well, so your car isn't putting you at risk. Your household goods, your furniture, your personal belongings, your wedding ring, none of that counts against you. Life insurance policies with a face value under $1,500 are excluded too. Burial funds set aside specifically for funeral expenses, up to $1,500, don't count either. And in many cases, a burial plot itself is excluded completely. Knowing these exclusions means you can stop panicking over things that were never actually putting your check in danger in the first place. And that alone can lift a weight off your shoulders that you've probably been carrying for years without even realizing it. There's another curiosity I want to open up right now, because it could change everything for certain families watching this. If you or someone you love became disabled before the age of 46, there's a savings tool most people have never heard of that could let you keep far more money without touching your SSI eligibility at all. I'm going to explain exactly how it works in just a moment. But first, you need to understand the biggest mistake seniors make when they're trying to avoid losing benefits, because this mistake can actually make things much worse than doing nothing at all. Here's that mistake, and I need you to really hear this. When people realize they're close to that $2,000 limit, some of them panic and try to give money away, hand it to a relative, or spend it in a way that looks like they're trying to hide it from the system. Please do not do this. The Social Security Administration has strict rules about transferring resources for less than fair value. And if they determine you did this specifically to stay under the limit, you can be hit with a penalty period of ineligibility that can last up to 36 months. That's 3 years without benefits, all because of a workaround that felt smart in the moment, but backfired completely. The real solution isn't hiding money. It's understanding the rules well enough to work within them honestly. And that's exactly what the rest of this video is going to give you.
So let's talk about the real, legitimate ways to protect your savings without ever putting your SSI at risk. If you're close to the resource limit, spending down in a smart, documented way before the end of the month can help. That means using extra money for things that don't count against you, like paying off medical bills, buying necessary household items, replacing an appliance that's on its last legs, or making home repairs that improve your living situation. These are legitimate uses of money that reduce your countable resources the right way, without any risk of penalty. And they actually improve your quality of life at the same time, instead of just parking money somewhere out of sight.
Now, here's that savings tool I promised to explain. Because for the right families, this is genuinely life-changing. It's called an ABLE account, which stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience. If your disability began before age 46, you or your family can open one of these accounts and save up to $100,000 in it without any of it counting toward your SSI resource limit. The money in an ABLE account can be used for disability-related expenses, things like housing costs, transportation, education, assistive technology, and healthcare. For families who qualify, this single tool can be the difference between living in constant fear of every deposit and finally having real financial breathing room to plan for the future instead of just surviving month to month.
I also want you to know something important happening right now, because it directly affects how long you'll have to live under that tight $2,000 ceiling. There is a bipartisan bill in Congress called the SSI Savings Penalty Elimination Act, and it's proposing to raise that individual limit from $2,000 all the way up to $10,000, with the couple's limit rising from $3,000 to $20,000. On top of that, the bill would tie the limit to inflation going forward, so it never again gets frozen in place for decades while the cost of everything else keeps climbing around it. This bill has real support from both political parties and from major advocacy groups like Justice and Aging, the National Council on Disability, and AARP. It hasn't passed yet, and I want to be completely honest with you about that. But the more seniors who understand this issue and speak up about it, the more pressure builds to finally get it across the finish line. Think about what that change would actually mean in real life. Instead of panicking every time a check lands in your account a few days early, you could finally build a real emergency fund. Instead of turning down help from your own children out of fear it might cost you your benefits, you could accept it gratefully. Instead of living paycheck to paycheck with absolutely no margin for error, you could have a small cushion for the first time in decades. That's not asking for luxury. That's asking for the basic dignity of not living in constant financial terror over a number that hasn't moved since 1989, back when a gallon of gas cost less than $1 and rent on an apartment was a fraction of what it is today. Until that day comes, here is exactly what you should do to protect your check every single month. Track your bank balance closely, especially around the end of the month, right before that first of the month snapshot the Social Security Administration uses to check your resources. If you receive a lump sum, whether it's a tax refund, an inheritance, or a gift, report it to your local Social Security office right away and ask how it affects your resource count before it becomes a problem, instead of after. Keep records of major purchases if you spend down resources, so you have proof of exactly where the money went if anyone ever questions it later. And if you're ever unsure whether something counts as a resource, call and ask before you assume, because guessing wrong is exactly how good, honest people end up losing benefits they were entitled to keep. I also want to leave you with one more piece of the puzzle that ties everything together, because it explains why this whole system feels so unforgiving in the first place. The Supplemental Security Income Program was created back in 1972
to help people who are older, blind, or living with a disability and who have very limited income and resources. It was never meant to be generous. It was meant to be a floor, a bare minimum to keep people from falling through the cracks entirely. But when the resource limit was set at $2,000 in 1989 and simply left there, frozen, decade after decade, while everything else in this country got more expensive, that floor started to feel less like a safety net and more like a ceiling, pressing down on anyone trying to climb even slightly higher. Understanding that history doesn't just make you angry, though it should. It also gives you the context to understand exactly why so many advocacy groups and lawmakers are finally pushing so hard for change right now. You spent your entire working life contributing to a system that was supposed to protect you when you needed it most. You are not asking for a favor. You are asking for what you already earned, delivered without a maze of confusing rules designed to trip you up the moment you try to build even the smallest cushion for yourself. Understanding exactly what counts, what doesn't, and what's coming down the road in Congress isn't just helpful information. It's the difference between living in fear of your own bank balance and finally having some peace of mind that you've more than earned after a lifetime of hard work.
If this video gave you even a little more clarity, even a little more confidence in protecting what's yours, then subscribe to this channel right now, because I'm going to keep bringing you the real, honest breakdown of every rule, every change, and every dollar you might be entitled to but don't know about yet. And please, share this with someone you love who's living on SSI, or who's caring for a parent or a spouse who depends on it. The more people who understand exactly how to protect this check, the fewer families will ever have to face losing it over something as simple as a birthday gift or a tax refund landing on the wrong day of the month. You've earned this. Let's make sure you keep every single dollar of it month after month for as long as you need it.